It's Rome and welcome to another episode of Home Front. And today we have with us our pioneer guest, our first guest ever on Home Front, Ms. Claudia Leacock, who, if you didn't know, now you're going to know, she was our first guest. She's a COVID-19 survivor and she's also a senior social worker. So welcome again, Claudia.
Thank you, Rome.
How are you feeling though, seeing that
I am feeling wonderful.
You're wonderful. You're fully recovered.
Wonderful. I want to believe so, yes. Yeah.
How long you spent in the Cuba hospital?
5 days.
5 days at
Yes.
Cuba hospital. And then I remember you spoke about having long COVID.
Yes.
How long did that last?
Well, I'm thinking because I had to be in my follow-up clinics, and so I'm going to say at the end of April, that was the end of it.
Okay.
Yes, so I think I'm fine now.
Well, you look great. You look wonderful.
Thank you.
So Claudia is here with us today. And Claudia, today, we want to touch a bit on the frontline workers because I know they have been feeling the strain as the numbers of COVID-19 patients keep ramping up. Every day we're seeing more and more numbers, and then we're seeing more deaths happening. And I know they are under stress. So today we want to discuss some of the coping mechanisms that they could apply as frontline workers.
But before we even go into the coping mechanisms room, I want to ask you a question. What's your weight?
I weigh around, let's say around 200 pounds.
Okay.
Heavy.
That's heavy, but that's great. However, that's not our focus.
Okay.
When I talk about what is your weight, I'm talking about what are the things that weigh on you.
What weigh?
Because if we are ready to understand or apply coping mechanisms, we have to understand what the frontliners are trying to cope with, or the effects of these issues on them. So that is why I brought my activities here with us today.
Why is Claudia here with her bag of big stone?
A
basket of big stone.
It is a very important tool when we're doing our teamwork exercises, when we're engaging our staff in terms of stress management sessions. It's a very important tool. What this does, this gives the nurses or whoever we're working with an opportunity to be free to choose, all right? Because this is a bag of rocks, but it's very weighty.
Right.
Could you imagine the basket with one rock as compared to a basket with all of these rocks? It's very heavy. The same thing happens with us. When we begin to pile issues on top of issues on top of issues, it becomes heavy and we have difficulty coping. I want to remind us as well, I'm doing this because life happened before COVID. We had issues before COVID.
Very
we were having difficulty coping before COVID.
Yeah.
And then COVID came. COVID is now upon us and COVID is piling up. You didn't want to know what I have these bottles here for?
I said, well, okay, the sun hot and you're thirsty, so I want to question.
Yeah, but it's not drinking water.
So it's not drinking water?
No.
All right.
These two bottles represent people. They're the same bottles. But tell me what's happening.
This
one twisted, right?
Yeah, this one's stressed out.
Thank you. Thank you. What else are you seeing?
I see that this one seems to have more water, but I'm not sure because it twisted if it's really more water.
It's really more water, more issues.
More issues.
And the more issues you have in your life without finding coping strategies is the more bent or pressed or twisted you become, because that is what issues of life do to you. All right? Now, COVID came and, you see, and you also started leaning with the issues. So COVID came and COVID has now interfered with our normal function.
With this presentation.
With our normal function. Now this is somebody who is almost full. What happens, COVID is now pouring into my life. I'll use myself. COVID is pouring into my life and you could see I'm becoming extremely full. What we have to be concerned about is the overflow. The overflow could be I deciding to jump over a building because I'm not coping well.
Right.
The overflow could be I could become an alcoholic because I'm not coping well. The overflow could be I could become abusive to my co-workers, to my family members. If I'm a manager or a supervisor, I could engage in communication that is not healthy for the working environment.
So we want to prevent the overflow.
That's right. We want to prevent the overflow, and we also want to take personal responsibility for what is happening with us. I wouldn't know that you are having issues by just looking at you. You look fine.
True.
You look fine.
True.
I don't know what is taking place with you. If I come a day and I am, Trini, nasty and abusive towards you, that could be right where you are at to overflow.
To overflow.
So what I'm saying is we need to be conscious, all right? We need to be very conscious of what we do, what we say, how we say. We need to be sensitive to the persons we work with.
I like that you're saying that, Claudia, because a lot of people, as you say, you're walking down the street and you're seeing people moving about a merry way and you don't know what is happening with them. You don't know by the time they just left home, something happened to them at home with their family, and they come to work and they may seem normal, and then you tell them something and that might just be the tipping point.
Yeah, you don't know if I had an argument with my husband before I left, and then I have to come into an environment that continues to become stressful over and over, piling on top each other, the issues piling on top each other.
All right, so this is the water, the COVID overflowing.
Yes.
And then you're going, how the rocks come in?
Listen, again, the issues is just a similar example, you know. The pouring of issues, the rocks represent the issues in your life. And the more you pile them on without finding coping strategies, the heavier you get with issues.
So how do we cope?
Right. So we talk about, the last time we spoke about some simple things. You exercise, you take a minute, you can have a me-ment, which is instead of a moment, you take a minute or a moment to a me-ment to have a cup of coffee, have a glass of juice, inhale some fresh air. All right, you can deal with your plants. How is your plant room?
It's going good, I don't know.
Okay.
I had to cut out 2-3 leaves.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm taking care of our name, huh?
Wonderful. What's your name?
Wendy.
I wonder why, but we wouldn't get into that today. And then for some of us, we have to do more. So for some of us, we may need to access counseling.
Right.
For some of us, we may need to access the stress management clinic. For some of us, we may need to engage in reflective thought. Do you know what that is?
Reflective thought. Is that me thinking back on what happened for the day or what happened in my life?
For the day.
For the day.
We start there.
All right.
You're on point, because I may have come into the office or into the ward very heavy, and I may not have responded to my co-worker or my colleague very well.
Yeah, somebody tell them morning and they're...
Yeah. You understand? And for you now to bring about that change or to help the environment become a little more healthy, you engage in reflective thought. You go back, you think about your day. What have I done? Did I do it right? Could I do it differently?
So you actually take a moment out of your day to think back on what the day was like?
Yes. Even at the end of your day. Don't you do that, Ron?
No, I don't really study that. I just go to bed and sleep.
Okay, so you not even conscious if you have affected somebody negatively in your day.
No, so I'm glad that you're saying that. So, so at the end of each day, reflective thought, take a moment, sit by myself and just think back. How was the day?
Yes.
How did I affect others?
Yeah, or how were you affected by others?
How was I affected by others?
Yes.
And then maybe in that thought process, I might think, how could I improve tomorrow?
Thank you. And if we all do that as a society, you see I wore my t-shirt. This is a social work t-shirt for 2021. The theme was Ubuntu, I am because we are. I can't do it alone. I need my colleagues.
So Claudia, we're going back here too. I take a me-ment, right? So drink some coffee or some juice, get some fresh air.
Yes.
You told me in terms of the reflective thought.
That's right.
Right, to look back.
Yes.
Are there any other coping mechanisms? Because remember, we're dealing with the frontline workers, so they would be under a little more stress than I would be
A
under.
lot more.
Yeah,
Especially now.
A lot more
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Exercise.
Exercise.
Yes.
How often do you recommend the exercise? Every day, every 2 days, every week? How
Every
often?
day.
Every day.
Every day. You only need about 10, 15 minutes. in the day.
Take
in
the
that day,
stairs
squeeze it
instead of
in.
the elevator.
Oh yes,
Right.
we have a lot of stairs at the hospital. Take the stairs.
Take the stairs. So that's okay. So we exercising, movement, and reflective thought.
Yes.
And those three. You have any others in terms of coping mechanism?
Yes, you may need to access the help of somebody else.
Professionals?
Professionals, yeah. The
Okay,
stress
if you
relief
need
clinics,
stress relief.
social workers.
Okay.
Because we do not assume to know everything about you. We do not make assumptions about, hey, Rome coping good today, because we see you. We really want to know what is taking place with you.
So what may be a trigger? Because I might be a big macho man, frontline worker. Let's say I'm a doctor or a nurse, and I say, well, nah, I don't need no help. I good to go.
Yes.
What may be a trigger for someone to know, hey, you know what? I might really need to see a social worker. You know, I might need to see a counselor.
Sometimes you may apply, forgive me, the wrong medication. You may write your diagnosis in the wrong file. A simple thing as spelling your client's name incorrectly. You come onto the ward, you're normally friendly and vibrant and enthusiastic. And you come onto the ward that day and you don't utter a word. As you said, morning, Those are triggers. Something is wrong here. The problem is, when we as social workers recognize that something may be wrong and we approach that individual, I gotta know. I
real good to know.
Yeah, I real good. You just leave me now.
All deal with
But
them people who have problems.
What happens is this. Because you're choosing not to deal with the issues, they pile and they pile and they pile, and then eventually one day you hear, I took an overdose of something. Or you hear, I walked out the ward and the downstairs looking very interesting and I jumped off instead of walking down the stairs. Yeah?
Right.
So we have to be so aware of those people who are around us. So aware of what is taking place in society.
But also to Claudia, I heard this in one of the, well, I usually read audiobooks, so I listen to the books, right?
Yes.
And I remember listening to this book, and they were saying like a bad attitude or coming to work with all of this stress and putting it on other people is not only affecting you, but is affecting those around you. So you have to be careful of your attitude on the job or your personal space, because you may think whatever bothering you alone. But by you biting at the nurses or biting at the other doctors or biting at any patient or anything like that is affecting other people, and you don't know what they are going through as well.
Yes.
So that's why I'm so happy to have you talk about these coping mechanisms, because especially the frontline workers, because they have such a great responsibility, not only with dealing with the patients, but dealing with the public, with dealing with their fellow co-workers, especially in a time like this, that we need them to be able to cope. Because if they can't cope, then what are we going to leave for the patients or for the general public?
And
so,
you know, before we go, I know time is short, we need to be reminded the entire society needs to assist with coping. If I do not follow the guidelines, if I do not follow the rules, it means down there, the frontline workers are going to be more affected. If I choose to have a party, a lime, I wear my mask like a necklace and I'm sporting it like that, the frontline workers are going to be seriously affected. So let's be conscious. Let's be aware of what is taking place in our society. It's serious. It's very serious. We need to take that mindful minute, and we also need to do reflective thinking.
So on that note, we want to head straight across into our mindfulness moment right here on Homefront.
Welcome to this mindfulness moment. Just closing your eyes, allowing yourself to come to this present moment. Noticing the sounds around you. And just taking a moment to connect with your breath. With so much going on around us, Sometimes it's hard to deal with uncertainty. But one thing that we can count on is our breath. So just take a moment and connect to this inhale and this exhale. Sometimes we feel like we have to know all the answers, and it's okay to just not know. When we approach the future with openness and acceptance, it helps us to cope with whatever we might be faced with. And you can always use your breath as an anchor to bring you back to this present moment so you can be here now.
And we're back from our mindfulness moment, and today we're talking about all of the coping mechanisms, especially when it comes to our frontline workers. So we want to thank Claudia very much for joining us on set one more time. And right now, we want you all to pick up your phone and keep sending us those questions via the video. So send your video questions to the email address and to our IG handle that you would see on the screen. And now we're going to jump across and answer one of your questions.
Hi Homefront, Nikita from Trend City. I would like to know what I can do at home with my 5-year-old, especially when I'm tired, to reduce her screen time.
Hi Nikita, thanks for your question. So this one is a really common question, and as a parent I completely understand it's an ongoing battle to try and get the balance right. I would suggest a few things. First, that you have a plan. Make a plan beforehand. Kids thrive with supportive, loving structure and boundaries. So make a timetable. Let your family know that this is going to be the new timetable around things like structure, maybe time spent in online classes if that's happening for you, time that you have roughly scheduled aside for maybe break times or meals, and schedule screen time so that everybody knows that this is what to expect. And that takes out some of the battles, because we all know that these are now going to be the new screen time rules and times. The second thing I'm going to suggest is put aside some self-care. As parents and caregivers, we often neglect ourselves, and that means we run on empty and we're tired and exhausted. So make sure you put aside some time for you, whether that is just to replenish your gas tank and to increase your reserve. So that could be things like having a cup of tea, making sure you get a little walk in the morning, doing some yoga, meditation, whatever that is for you. It's really important that you top up on your tanks, and you'll be able to cope a lot better with what's going on in this pandemic. The third thing is make sure your kids are getting enough rest and bedtime in particular. So have a look at our segment on sleep for some more advice on this, but I definitely would say have an age-appropriate bedtime. Kids that are well rested actually are less likely to be so emotionally labile, meaning their emotions are likely to be calmer and easier to handle. And you have to manage your screen time around that. And the last thing I'd say is really allow for a lot of free play. So play for kids doesn't have to be structured or organized. In fact, we know that kids being allowed to direct their own play has fantastic benefits for problem solving. So let them go outside. If you have the benefit of having garden space or yard space, let them go out and play with things like boxes, use their imagination, have a little water play, a lot of fine motor things like plasticine play, sticking, painting, etc. Fantastic for developing those fine motor skills that they'll need for later on. So my main tips around this is allow for a lot of free play, unstructured play, outdoor play if you can get that, and that would be really helpful. Thanks again and take care. Bye-bye.
So keep sending in those questions and we're going to get those answers for you. My name is Rome. Thank you all very much for joining us for another exciting episode and informative episode of Homefront. And special thanks goes out to Heritage in Cascade for accommodating us today, and to our PED CARES Foundation. And if you all didn't know, they are the ones that are putting this entire thing together. You know, they would be training the doctors, the nurses, the pediatrics, the paramedics. They train everyone, they support everyone at the Mount Hope Hospital, and they also support the kids on the pediatric wards. So you all keep on donating, keep on supporting the PED CARES Foundation, and we will keep bringing you that information right here on Homefront. So catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye-bye.